Welcome back to the Buzzworthy Consultant Podcast, where we chat with the leading thought leaders in the consulting industry. Today, I have the pleasure with talking with Chris Duprey, who has built his career and life on helping people unlock their potential. A former Army officer turned business leader, he is now a partner at the Question First Group, where he helps leaders and teams have better conversations, build deeper connections, and achieve breakthroughs. Let's see what makes Chris so buzzworthy. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Where are you calling from?
I am in Middletown, Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah, and to bracket it, 90 minutes from Boston, 90 minutes from New York City. Right in the middle.
There you go. Yes. And aren't you like 90 minutes from anywhere if you're in Connecticut?
Basically, yeah. Yep.
We're actually in that space about 2 years ago. My wife and I did a little tour of New England as I was getting close to my 50 states by 50. And so those were like, we nailed like 8 states in a week or something like that. A week, maybe 10 days. Yeah. Spent a whole day in Boston though. Love that. I'm a big clam chowder fan. So we had to go. So yeah. The lobster hoagies. Actually, I was surprised by that. That is some next level stuff.
I mean, that's the best sandwich.
Yeah.
A lobster roll is the best sandwich. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you pair that with a New England clam chowder. Forget about it.
Yeah. That's why we stay in Connecticut.
Then what now?
That's why people stay in New England.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, we just moved to Richmond, Virginia. So this is my first 8th state I've ever lived in. And I'm getting used to the East Coast of things because I lived in Alaska for 17 years. I was always a West Coaster pretty much my whole life, but the last 17 years spent in Alaska, where I was always 4 hours behind the East Coast.
Right.
And I have clients still in Alaska. So I'm now 4 hours and I'm like, this is a switch. I'm an early riser. So now I'm trying to figure out, do I just get up later and then stay up later now? Because like watching football is like a horrible thing. Like you got it, like it's midnight. You're like, what the hell am I watching football at midnight?
Yeah. Welcome to
Anywho, we started digressed. That's hilarious. We just off the rails today. Today we're talking about leadership, and in the green room we were talking about the fact that like when businesses are in that mid 7-figure space where things are really rolling. I mean, they're starting to get their product market fit, and all of these things are working for them, and they can see that the growth is actually going to become exponential. But the problem is that is just in the sales growth. Right? Where they've figured that messaging out. But in the leadership, in helping grow the team, we have miscommunications and we don't have a path to grow out probably the middle management that's going to be where the bulk of the leadership growth is going to be. And so I kind of want to start a conversation like, one, what are the symptoms that people are having this existential leadership crisis in that mid 7 to low 8 figures?
Yeah, this is that part where there's a sense of burnout potentially, right? There's your best players who you've probably promoted not hitting targets, and they don't know how to handle it, right?
Right.
And then you have staff that just becomes dependent on the leaders. And so all that innovation you had when you were new, when you were getting going, it feels like it's just halted. And that mid-level managers who are, they're overly stressed and stagnate. Right. And it's this idea. Just think about it. Like as we think about it, you're going to go, oh, of course. We promote the best people because they were the best at their thing.
They're the best doers.
They were the best doers of the thing.
Right.
And then we don't really train them on how to do the leading part,
Right.
and then their goals get bigger.
Mm.
And so, what is usually true about the best individual contributors? They hit their numbers, they exceed their numbers. They've never failed once in
Mm.
their life. And
Mm.
now that target's harder to achieve. They're working more. They
Mm.
have people coming to them. And we create this cycle of
Mhm.
dependency, not hitting our targets, imposter syndrome sets in, and
Oh, yeah.
now senior leaders, we're sitting there going, "What happened to Susie? She was the best."
Right?
And the idea is that we as those senior leaders have to look internally and
Yeah.
go, "Oh, it's because we're not training them.
It's a
We're
true
not giving
statement.
them the thing that they need."
Yeah, and it's funny because like in sales, I've seen over the years, like my best salespeople are not my best sales managers. That's just
Yeah,
not there. It's they're wired differently. Actually, it's my folks who struggle at the sale, like they understand the sales, but they're not the best sales. My middle ground salespeople actually end up being my better sales managers. They manage the process of it, but they're just not the closer, right?
yeah,
And the
100%.
closers like the close, so like and I started out, in sales and marketing. I was in guitars, guitar centers. I was an assistant manager there, and so I started out on the guitar floor selling guitars, and I was like the salesman of the year and all that other stuff. And then I got into the management of it, right? And it's like in management, yeah, I could motivate the guys and stuff like that, but I missed being on the floor. Like
Sure.
that was much more exciting to talk to people about music all day versus like got to hit the numbers and blah blah blah. And I still had to hit numbers, but I also had to make sure that my guys hit numbers too. And so I
Right.
see that tear there. And over the years, I did have good leaders teach me how to be a better leader, right?
Yeah, so
And
you're one of the lucky.
right, I got lucky, really lucky. And and
That's right.
and I was also in the Air Force where that's what they teach you how to be is a leader, right?
This is one of those moments where I'm like, "Holy smokes, the Army got this right." And so think about it.
Right.
And for any vets listening, you're gonna be like, "No, well, think about this. When you make sergeant or E5, you have to go to a
Mhm.
same
Gotta go
thing
to
when you make
NCO Academy. Yep. Air Force does the same thing.
yeah. When before I commanded an infantry company, I had to go to the maneuver captain's career course, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that these were the best leadership academies in the world, but they taught you certain things
Mhm.
to help you progress in the career,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Instead, we take the, well, I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow approach. And there are certain humans that that's fine with, right?
Right.
But the majority of the young leaders coming up today are not that.
Mm-mm.
And so, how do
Mm-mm.
we create a communication system, a framework to
Mm.
allow people to grow and develop and not create this dependency? And the
Mhm.
organizations that can do that, you're still going to feel that
Mhm.
awkwardness of new young leaders,
Right.
but you're going to create a system of creating new leaders.
Right. The system, I think the system and the roadmap of, I mean, even letting your team know that there is a roadmap. Like if they see that that's there. I mean, we just hired a new operations manager at my firm just a couple weeks ago, and during the process of selecting, I'm listening to people ask about the path beyond that job because
Yeah,
now I have a career-minded person in there that's going to be good for the organization, not a job finder who's just going to get the job done and go home,
that's
right?
right.
That's like the biggest thing right now is that you see a lot of job hopping. And so they don't even stick around long enough to get trained to be a leader because they're not there long enough to establish themselves as leader material,
Right.
right? They're not showing that they're the good guy to do the things that need to get done. Those are the
Right.
people get picked to go, right?
And then we look at the reports from Gallup that are like, we saw engagement in the workplace drop again this quarter.
Right.
Like, duh.
Yeah.
And so when my partners and I at the Question First group, we were thinking about this. So we were thinking about how do we teach this system that
Mhm.
we have been doing.
Mhm.
And we all are huge fans of Kim Scott and Radical Candor, right?
Okay. Okay.
And we used to teach it by literally just showing the cover that had that compass on it.
I
And
love
so
it.
we said, you know what? We're going to do the same thing. So if you're listening, just and Michael, just follow me on this. So if you
Okay.
think of north south arrow, so
Right.
we're going to draw north south arrow at the top. We're going to put them. That is our
Okay.
audience. That is the people we are communicating with.
Okay.
Whether it's the folks we lead, or if you're a salesperson, it's your buyers, right? So them.
Mhm.
The bottom, we put us. That is me.
Mhm.
This is the spectrum of who is going to benefit from the conversation. Like who's the intended beneficiary.
Love it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then on the horizontal, this is the spectrum of curiosity. On
Ah.
the right is asking. On
Mm.
the left is telling.
Gotcha.
Okay. So now we got 4 quadrants, right? Now, as
Mhm.
you do this, you're going to start thinking of humans as I explain each one to you.
Okay.
And you're listening and you're a senior leader, like you will have experience of like, oh, I know exactly who fits in that bucket. Or you're like, oh, shoot, I fit in that bucket. And if you're like, um, a teammate and employee, you're going to be like, this person's this. So here we go. Bottom left. So me focused, us like
Mhm.
I, I'm the
Internal.
intended beneficiary,
Mhm.
and I'm telling. We
Mm.
call this the dictator.
Right.
This is Steve Jobs' early Apple,
Gotcha.
right? Do it
Mhm.
because you said so. It is to make me look and feel good. I don't care if I do what's in. Then we go to the right, bottom right.
Mhm.
This is about us, but we ask questions.
Mhm.
Think of a lawyer. Think of like if you watch Suits, Harvey
Mhm.
Specter.
Right.
Ask questions, but he's doing it for his own or his client's own benefit.
Mhm. Yes, selfish questions.
Selfish questions, leading the witness is what we say, right? When we,
I love it. I love that. That's good. That's good.
because we all know when that's happened. Like
Right.
that's really, we're being manipulated at that point,
Right. Yeah,
right?
manipulation. Right.
Yeah. So we go top left. We it is all about making you better, but we're telling you.
Mhm.
This is the instructor.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
The coach, yeah.
Code like think of like a great sales leader that's like, hey, just do exactly what I did and you're gonna have success.
Right.
And so they help you, but there's still this wall that you can't break through.
Right. I think
Okay.
of Bill I think of Belichick. Do your
Yeah.
job, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, well, he
All the
says
same.
that to the end, but it's like he tells you what the job is gonna be, right? Now go
Yeah.
do your job.
Yeah. And it's very boom.
Yeah.
Top right, others focused, asks questions. We call this the pathfinder.
Okay.
This is the leader that helps grow and develop their team so that they
Mhm.
figure things out for themselves. They self discover what needs to happen.
Mm.
Think of, think of Ted Lasso, if I
Right.
can
That's a
get
great
into,
example.
right?
Mhm.
Ted Lasso. So this is where if the instructor, when an employee comes to you and says, "Hey boss, what do you think I should do?" You go, "This."
Mm.
Instructor. Employee runs in, "Hey boss, what do you think I should do?" And they go, "Well, what have you thought of so far?"
Right.
Because
Right.
now we're making those employees think and we're
Mhm.
empowering them and we're going to ask them a bunch of questions and they're going to get to
Mhm.
discovery. Whereas the instructor, we're going to create
Mm.
dependency. So while our intentions are correct, they're going to
Mhm.
come back every single time.
Yeah, because
And
you're not teaching them how to think, how to
right,
reason. Reasoning is like the biggest thing that is not taught in school,
yeah. And
right? Rote memory.
here's the funniest thing. All we have to do is not let assumptions drive us and be
Mm,
curious.
right,
You're going to take away a bunch of the problems that we discussed at the beginning.
right,
Because when we're curious and we know how to ask good questions, and
right.
this is where the framework comes in with
Mhm, mhm.
these 4 pillars that we teach people, and that, by the way, nothing's new. It's just all put together, right?
Right,
So
it's
we think
curated.
about how do we bring energy that's positive, not let anything knock us back
Mhm,
in conversations. We call that yes and. That's a pillar of yes
mm,
and, right?
mhm.
Instead of shutting
Yeah,
people down, we build them up.
yeah.
We get in front of concerns before they become concerns. This is called
Mm,
vanguarding, right?
mhm, mhm,
So we know that we're about to go have a feedback conversation. We talk about how the person might feel as we go through it to make sure that we're showing them that we acknowledge that it could be tough, but that they
mhm.
also know this is a space where we're here to grow.
Right,
The
right,
third one is question first. Be curious.
right.
Self-discovery is key. And the fourth is the law of three. You always have to ask follow-up questions. The first answer is never the real one. So
Right.
when you learn and practice and get those four things, you will naturally shift more to being the pathfinder.
Love it.
And when we get stuck in like time constraints or overwhelm
Mm, mhm,
or underperformance, we revert to the lawyer or the dictator. And if we don't have the right self awareness, the right coaching, and the right practice mindset,
mhm,
that's where all those problems of, disengagement, uh,
mm.
overwhelm, all burnout, all those things come from that.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, it's amazing that, like, asking questions, when I ask questions of my team, not only are we setting am I setting them up for self-discovery and actually helping them understand how to better reason through the problems that we have to solve, in
Yeah,
business. I learn why
that's
they think certain things. And now when I'm creating the pathway for maybe a new SOP, or maybe I'm looking at a new program, I already know kind of the mindset of where they're at because I understand how they are thinking,
right.
right? And then it's like, oh shoot, you think that way, and Susan over here thinks the same kind of way, and she's a manager and you're not. Maybe if I put two together, Susan will rub off on her
Yeah,
because they have the same communication style. They got
that's
the
right.
same thought process, right?
That's right.
That type of thing. So asking questions is not just about development. I think it's discovery on both sides.
Oh,
Your leaders understanding their
everybody,
team.
yeah, it's not a zero sum game.
Yeah.
Everybody wins when we're more
Right.
curious.
Right.
And, you know, one of the first keys, so when people are like, Chris, how do we even think about this first? It's you have to become like you have to be aware enough to notice when you're assuming and just stop. So if here's a simple one in sales. When somebody's like, well, that's too expensive. We don't know what they mean because too
Right.
expensive for me and too expensive for you could be totally different. So we have
Hmm.
to ask a question. The same thing when somebody comes to you and says, I'm I'm overwhelmed. Well, what does that mean? Right? Because overwhelmed for a 40-year-old is different than overwhelmed for a 20-year-old, right? So we have
Right.
to ask these questions. But Michael, here's the thing, the big thing is a leader's job is not to tell people what to do. A leader's job is to get them to discover it for themselves.